This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, publishing world continues to turn. The last month I have had the pleasure of being at two really awesome writers' conferences. One was at the Las Vegas Writers' Conferences, and I wooed out to all my followers there because this is the second time that I've been brought back, and I loved it. And a new group that we had the pleasure of working with in Oklahoma City, which is the Oklahoma Writers Conference. And what a great array of people, of authors, of ideas, of energy. I loved it. But here's one of the things that consistently came up with. I had several come to book discussions because I did one-on-one consults with between the two conferences, over 40 one-on-one times with authors. And that a couple of I had to say, what were you thinking? And one of them, I'm actually brought back the postcard of her cover because I am using it. It wins the prize this year so far for the ugly book, wrong book cover. And I hate to say that to people, but there's no reason why you should have an ugly book. There's no reason why your interior should look like it's been disheveled. There's no reason why anyone should be looking at your book and in an instant think, oh, it's another self-published book. I wonder if it's any good. It just shouldn't happen. So with me, back again for, I don't know about what time, is Nick Zelinger, one of my favorite book designers, and Nick does a lot of my own personal book designing. And Nick is the principal of NZ Graphics, and we're going to talk about covers, interior, as well as the exterior, as well as the interior. So we're talking about design because people pick your book up because of the cover. So with that, Nick, welcome back to AuthorU, your guide to book publishing.
Thanks, Judith. Great to be here. Hi to everybody.
Yeah, hi. Okay, so Nick, you and I have just come through another frickin' snowstorm here in Colorado, and you had hail that knocked out windshields here this past week.
Yeah, I had it was pretty brutal. I fared better than most because our hail was, well, it was 4 times in a row. It was marble size, but just up the road they had golf ball size hail that actually just absolutely decimated cars and neighborhoods. So it was, I'm sure the insurance companies are, as busy as they can be right now with claims and stuff. So it was springtime in the Rockies.
Oh God, it is springtime in the Rockies. Well, let's talk about not decimating a book. And
yes, and you made a great. I mean, you made a great point about the bane of being self-published, because the question that comes up right after that, and you mentioned in exact words, was, "I wonder if it's any good," and that's exactly the case, because the look of a self-published book comes with it the caveat that someone did it themselves, someone didn't put the time, effort, and expense, and a professional crafting that needs to compete with other books. So you fall short. I mean, I take stock every few months of the work that I've done with authors and with the meetings and stuff to see what comes up as continual challenges and problems. And I'm like you. I see authors trying to cut corners by either doing it themselves, going the less expensive route, but it does them no good at all or service, because if the bottom line is your cover is your product, it's product packaging. If any other company, a cereal company or a sports company, put out a product that packaged that was inferior, that looked like somebody did it over the weekend by, with an unprofessional approach, it would be pulled from the market because sales would collapse or there would be no sales. And I think authors need to know that that's part of the business of professional publishing.
Well, the reality is, Nick, it won't even get into the market. It may rest on Amazon and just sit there, but
yes.
And no other outlets are going to say, "Oh my God, I could hardly wait to get this in." And I always get my guinea pigs, but people who come to me and they say and people who know me, though I'm blunt, and it may turn you off, but if you want my opinion, you're going to get it. You need to ask me, I need to say, do you want my opinion or do you just want me to listen? Okay. So with that, they wanted my opinion. And, I just said, this looks like crap. It has nothing to do with what your topic is, has nothing to do with what you're trying to convey or your message you're getting across. And literally, what were you thinking? Now, in one case, the woman had paid many, many, many hundreds of dollars to have what she thought was a professional bookkeeper or book designer, cover designer, do it. And I just said, he didn't get he didn't get what your book was about. And her book involved, discovering the mysteries of a foreign country. And I'm not going to say which one it is. The image was totally wrong. It had her in a different part of that neck of the woods of the world. It had nothing that conveyed this was a kind of a travel log, and would be a guide in that. Nothing. And, it was just, and I asked her, as I asked permission, and then I just shot it down and I went point by point what was wrong with it and point by point how it could be fixed. Because you got to give the hug at the end. You got to say, okay, this is what we can do. And here's what authors always say to me when they're sitting with a screw up. Well, I've got so many copies and I have to wait. And my attitude is, no, you don't. You need to destroy. You need to destroy.
That's right. Yeah,
and replace.
You pull it from the market like any other company would do. You take it. If Coca-Cola did the wrong formula or did the wrong packaging on something, they pulled it. And I think that kind of critique, while most authors want validation. And they just want to say, isn't this great? Because I worked so hard on it. But if you really put your business hat on as a publisher and an author, you need to have a professional critique of your work so that you know where you stand in the market. So when somebody really does criticize it, I take critique and criticism much better these days than I did in my younger days of doing cover design, because I realized that this is a business and that, the bottom line is the book's got to sell. And if it's not selling for a variety of reasons, and cover is definitely one of them, you need to revisit and rethink the strategies. And I think a lot of what happens with authors hiring designers is they're either, one, they're not a good fit, two, they don't communicate exactly what their target audience is or what their desire is. Bottom line is most busy designers, most successful designers do not have the luxury of reading an entire book. They just don't. But they do want to have a very concise synopsis and a good heart-to-heart discussion about who the target audience is, what their demographics are, what their competition is, all the things that I kind of investigate anyway when I'm starting a cover design. So I think that disconnect there between the author and a designer sometimes leads to what usually leads to is that endless rounds of diddling around with cover design. It's almost like picking drapes for a house. You just want to see the multiple colors. No one's doing any service for that because you're not really addressing the real issues of this. It's not an aesthetic issue. It's a target. You're trying to hit the right notes for your who your buying public is.
Well, let me just, because we have some points you and I wanted to go through, but let me just also give a shout out for all the really awesome book designers that are out there. That too many times authors get in your way. I get that. You've experienced that. I get that. And so for the authors and writers who are to be authors listening in, I want you to get out of your designer's ways. Give them the concept, give them the theme, give them a chapter or two so they maybe can get a feel of what it is. Don't count on them to read your whole book. Please don't go down that alley. But you need to give them some tools to work with, and then get out of their way and let them do it.
Let them do what they do best, but also let them defend the reason why they say this is the cover that should be for you, and understand a good designer should be able to support the concept that they're offering by saying the reasons why this cover works versus that cover. I think, and there are a lot of great designers that can do that. And because it's really not about, I spent hours on this and it's a beautiful looking cover and it really has to, this is the one that should be. It's got to be a really professional discussion about why the cover is working. So I think a good designer should be able to, and they do, often do support that, decision by telling them why this cover works better than that cover. And authors need to accept the fact that they need professional help with that decision.
Yeah, one of those great examples you and I had was with our mutual client Courtney Miller, who is really on a writing thing. He is creating a series of books, and with his very first book, you and I had to. I really thought I was going to lose the fight, and I was going to go down because you and I both felt this one cover was the one for a couple of critical reasons. And he did one of the typical things that many authors want to do. They want to get all the key elements on the cover. And what he did a focus group. He said, Judith, I listened to you. We did a focus group. Turned out the focus group had his wife and his best friend and his brother and, people who loved him and are not going to say, and don't have that critical eye. They weren't the real buyers. And
yep. Mm-hmm.
And so one of the questions that you have to answer for the designer, or you give to the designer, is who is the buyer of the book? And that's essential to understand. And unfortunately, too many authors don't know who their real buyer is.
That's true, and that's if they don't, then you have to kind of stop process here and let them, and suggest that they do their research, their due diligence about where their audience is, because and to know that is to know who your competition is, because your book's going to be online next to those books. So know who's the bestseller in your genre that you're writing about. That's your competition.
And do a comparison. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay. With us is Nick Zelinger of NZ Graphics, and we're talking books.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Is there a book in you or another? AuthorU will show you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you'll find a supportive and brainstorming community that's connected and creative no matter where you live. AuthorU brings in national experts for its book camps and annual author extravaganza held each May. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through AuthorU's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. The Resource, its online book publishing news magazine, is content heavy and it's free. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, AuthorU is for you. If you're a hobbyist or a casual author, it's not. Join AuthorU today through its website at AuthorU.org. Follow AuthorU on Twitter at AuthorU and on Facebook at AuthorU, where timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted daily. AuthorU, where the author goes to become seriously successful.
First impressions are everything in the world of book publishing. Whether your book is an ebook, a print version, or both, your book cover needs to pop, sizzle, and sparkle to immediately capture the attention of your audience. And your book's interior needs to be just as dynamic and reflect the professionalism your readers demand. Nick Zelinger of NZ Graphics has won numerous national and international book awards for his cover designs and interior layouts. With over 20 years of experience in graphic design, he knows what it takes to create award-winning books and the many promotional pieces that authors need, such as posters, banners, postcards, one-sheets, business cards, logos, and more. Visit ncgraphics.com and see what authors and publishers have to say about their award-winning books and how NZ Graphics can make your book the success it was meant to be. That's nzgraphics.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Alrighty, with me is Nick Zelinger, and we are really talking about how to create a very, very successful back cover, and plus other elements of your physical book. And as Nick and I reinforced, we've worked together for years. My disclaimer is that he has designed my last 4 books. That we really need to make sure that your book says what you mean to have it say in both the cover design and the interior design. And that why it's really essential important to listen to the cover designer. I mean, if he or she doesn't get it, then maybe you need another one. And Nick and I had a situation where we had to terminate an illustrator, which was painful for me to have to do it because I had a friendship relationship with her, but I also kissed off a lot of money because I had prepaid to have the work done and I knew I wasn't going to get it back. But both Nick and I knew it ain't working, right, Nick?
That's true. That's the hard reality of some of that, and it has to just you just have to pull a plug sometimes and it's the same. We've already talked about that about doing rescue books too. If it's not working, you've had it out there for a while, and there's a bevy of problems with bad reviews or the book looks bad because it was assembled wrong. You pull it and fix it.
Yeah, so let me give a don't to do, because I'm seeing this, and I had an SOS from an editor last night that I work with, and she said, "Have you seen this book?" And I said, "No, I really haven't." I gave her your name. She's designing her. She says she's a designer. She's done, it's probably the usual. I do brochures and corporate reports, and she's designed their book, and she's got all these elements throughout the edited part. And I'm going to, and Nick, maybe I need you to jump in here, but when I'm working as a book shepherd with someone, I just want you, one, to work in a Word document. Don't go fancy-dancy and try to design what this book's going to look like for you. Please don't do that. That's my input. Secondly, when you have illustrations or any type of art or sidebars or callouts, that I just want you to note that they're going to go in this spot, or photos that they're going to go in, and what the title is, and you don't need to drop all that in and try to design borders and stuff. And Nick, would you jump on this?
Yeah, I would list that as what is my top pet peeves, and I understand the desire for an author who has said work on their book for a number of years, and they're trying to craft it and lay it out in Microsoft Word, which is not a book layout program. It's a manuscript document, but they do their best to, do all the things that you mentioned. The problem with that is you've left no leeway for the designer to do anything but follow just your wishes, which I would say more often than not are not right. First of all, they're not probably sized to the book size, the trim size of the book, so things are going to change. So I would say to authors, and we go back to that, let the interior layout designer do what they do best, which is lay out a professional book. Now, that doesn't mean you can't offer suggestions on what kind of font styles you may like. You may have a discussion or an argument about that, but those are all consultations and collaborations. But yeah, I would say keep your Word document as your manuscript. Write it, and don't spend time don't spend time designing it in Word because it's going to change, and besides that, Word is not a layout program.
Well, and the other thing is, if you do have any kind of artwork, I remember doing a cookbook, and going through and doing this cookbook, and when it was the designer finally had it all laid out, there were so many eye treats in it that she had pulled elements from the different artwork and recipe displays that really enhanced the integration of the interior. That a lot of times you don't think of because people like Nick and Rebecca Finkel's another designer that I like to work with, and Michelle DeFilippo, they all have skills in different areas, and you just really have to give them your stuff and then let them eyeball it all, and they will start getting their own juices going on what they can create based on what you supplied. Would that be correct, Nick?
I would agree, totally agree. Both Michelle and Rebecca are really gifted at taking, incorporating cover elements into the interior of the book and enhancing and expanding those ideas. I mean, I think the challenge that comes up with them, like myself, is that when you, as a technical bit of advice, authors tend to drop in, images that they get either from the internet or something they have into their Word document saying, this is where I want this. But those images that are embedded in Word are not raw native image files. Designers need to have the original file so that they can drop it into Photoshop to make sure that it is the correct resolution and color format, and do whatever enhancements they do to make sure it looks good to print. So copying and pasting a image from a Word file that that an author puts in there is not going to work. They're okay for visual reference, but like you mentioned before, you don't need to design a call out or a sidebar. You just need to say begin call out, end call out, because that call out design will change or may be modified according to whatever the cover is, because we want to make sure that the cover and the interior are they're married to each other. There's a continual flow of design elements from cover to cover, not just you have a wonderful cover, you open up, and all of a sudden you look at something totally alien from what the cover was.
Or just plain Jane, and there's text after text. And I think one of the beauties that we've been able to do with the independent and self-market, and I think we've been really way ahead of the traditional market, at least the gang we get to work with, Nick, is that we have really customized the interiors of our books with you finding a crucial element or an intriguing element that comes from that cover that then can be integrated and flowed through the opening chapters.
And even
books.
in
Just this
fiction,
really nice customization. Yeah, even in fiction, exactly.
Even in fiction, we've had authors that we've basically, as an example, for their chapter page, we'll have a background image that was maybe the cover or ghosted back or something, just to give that element of drama to the opening chapters, give some environment to it. So those are all little things that enhance the inside of a book. It doesn't take away from the readability, and I think it enhances it because it just keeps that mood flowing throughout the story.
Yeah, and sometimes what I also love is that when it bleeds, that chapter bleeds into to the end page there, that someone could look at it. I don't know if you've ever had a book close on you. You didn't realize it was going to close. You can get back to it really fast thinking, it was the beginning of a chapter. Oh, yeah, there's darker shading here. So let me just kind of open it and get into it. So it's we're really talking about, why authors should maybe integrate their covers, their interior designs. I mean, for me, from the get-go, that's part of what you think, because I'm looking at that. So I'm excited to see a cover come down, so then I can talk with the Nick in your life and literally say, wouldn't it be cool if we took this whole swoop down, this tree that you've got here, that's in here, and maybe just make that a main flow and let it flow all the way down and wrap or do something. But it's much more fun, let me tell you. It's more fun when you do it.
It is, and it's there's just an aesthetic that gives the book a little bit added quality to it. You've basically just enhanced the story by having a little bit that graphic touch to it. We're not talking flowery or, over designing. We're just saying something that's balanced, well balanced to the book, and that, and in fact, even our good friend and author, Dr. Brad Poppy, we've done it with his books too. We've added interior elements to his business books. So nothing. Business books, nonfiction books do not have to be just dry-looking text. They can be exciting and dynamic, and actually add to the narrative.
Exactly. Okay, so Nick, I've got about 2 minutes to our next break. So let's talk very quickly about trim size. What's usable today?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed. It goes with according to maybe some trends, but I would say for the majority of fiction books, for instance, you're really going to see the old 6x9 unless it's a hardback. They most of the time will want to go 5.5 by 8.5, or even 5 by 8 1/4. Some of the smaller sizes. But I think if someone chooses a 6x9, generally it's maybe a business book that has a lot of graphs and charts in it. But I think the trend is away from the larger books into the smaller books. So be aware of your genre. And I was talking to somebody yesterday about YA books, and she wanted to do a 6x9 or something. And I said, no, that you will rarely ever see a 6x9 YA book ever. So, go to the bookstore and look at your categories, look at your genre, and see what those sizes are, and take your tape measure and see what they are, because that's an important issue. The size of your book really should reflect the genre that you're into. So. Exactly,
and anyone writing for YA, all they have to go into is actually a library. Go into the section where they have YA and talk to the children's librarian, who's going to cover all that, and they will very very often tell you it's 5 by 8, 5 1/4 by 8, or 5 by 8 1/4, 5.5, 5.5 by 8.5. It's going to be in that kind of a realm that you stay in, and you'll be in good company. And the problem, I think, Nick, is that when I see all the self-published realm, and they choose that 6x9, a lot of times they're thin books and they feel skinny. That 5 by 8 will give you more volume here. We'll be right back.
That's true.
Yep. We'll be back. Nick Zelinger is my guest. We're talking about book and design and your success.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Want to publish like a pro today? Well, then take a look at Ingram Spark, the only publishing platform that offers print and ebook services through a single source. Upload, edit, and manage titles all in one place. Take more control of printing costs with print on demand, and reach even more readers through one of the world's most extensive distribution networks. Built by independent publishers for independent publishers, Ingram Spark has everything you need to maximize your book's potential: color printing, ebook distribution, print on demand, global reach, and more. Start publishing with Ingram Spark today and see just how far your titles will go tomorrow. That's ingramspark.com.
Many of us have dreamed of writing a book.
Some of us even have.
Then the hard work starts.
You'll need an editor.
Who will design the cover or typeset the pages?
Who will format the ebook?
If you're a business owner, consultant, or coach with a serious message and expertise to share, the team of experts at 1106 Design can guide you through the maze.
They've helped more than 1,000 authors create top-quality books and avoid the not-so-reputable self-publishing companies.
Learn more at 1106design.com.
Then call Michelle at 602-866-3226. 1106 Design.
When Ned Thompson and Harry Shore started Thompson Shore in 1972, they believed employees with great character would make up the best company. They were right. They hired people who were not only experts in bookmaking, but who were obsessed with quality and delivering exceptional customer service. Almost 40 years later, Thompson Shore remains a 100% employee-owned company. Ned and Harry knew that successful customer projects are a direct result of empowered employees. We specialize in all books for large and small publishers. Creating beautiful and well-made books, we're dedicated to pleasing our customers by making the experience a good one from start to finish. The personal touch we have with our customers allows us to be innovative in solving their most difficult challenges. Our platform also ensures that we can remain flexible to meet our customers' unique needs and expectations. Our marketing kit can create buzz for your title, enhancing the promotion of your book during infancy. When you need to test the market to gauge your future sales, we can provide digitally printed books that will transition seamlessly into a larger offset run. From ebook to hard copy to delivery, our skillful customer service teams are at the ready to answer your most pressing question. At Thompson Shore, we know that making the highest quality books requires more than just best technologies. It requires superior customer service, professionalism to the trade, and commitment to environmental and social values. With these standards of excellence in place, you can be sure that we will always help you put your best book forward.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Nick, one of our things that I've always been nutsy about is I've always told people the cover is the lighthouse. It's the beacon that will pull people in. The real sales happen on the back cover. And that it's for me, coming from a marketing and sales background, it's got to have marketing zip to it. And I don't know what percentages fail, but I think it's pretty big in that area. So let's talk a little bit about crafting that effective back cover copy.
Yeah, it's an art unto itself, being able to write effective back copy. I mean, I think of all the things that I look back at and with conversations of authors, regardless if it's fiction or nonfiction, that the issue will come up of a lot of them will say, well, I just don't have any idea what to write on a copy. And I go back to, well, start looking at the bestsellers in your genre because you'll see what it is. It's basically your elevator speech. Just think of it as if you got 45 seconds or whatever on an elevator with somebody who says, well, why would I buy your book? You need to tell them why to buy your book. Mm-hmm. And it's so it needs to be short, concise, dynamic. It's actually, like you said, it's the most valuable real estate on your cover, because once they see the pop and the zing and the bling from that front cover, they turn it over, and there's where they make the sale, because they'll say, oh, I need this book because it's telling me what it's going to give me, whether it's a self-help book or a book on business or finance, or if it's a fiction book that's fantasy or whatever, you're selling them your idea. So there are elements there that you and I together have worked on before that we know are successful, and you want to have a really good headline, and it could be a question or a series of questions, and then you answer that question in the following statements. And then if it's a business book or a nonfiction book, maybe you have a list of snappy bullet points about what it's going to. You're going to either ask more questions with answers, or you're going to say, this is what you're going to find in this book. So, as you know, it's an art to writing it, to have it flow and to read quick and snappy.
And then the other thing I see authors make all the time, and this is really consistent, is that they take their title of their book, and if they use a headline of any sort, that's the headline on the back cover. And they're really missing the boat.
That's just laziness. Yeah, it's laziness, because they really can't follow the thread of what they're doing. I mean, or they use their subtitle, which is basically just you've given up. You've not really given a lot of thought to what you want. I mean, you've written a book that's 150 to 250 pages, maybe more. If there's not something in there that you can't cull from or, distill into the back cover. But, we've worked with copywriters who consistently say, this is important stuff and professionals need to do it sometimes. And we actually have people who do copywriting for back covers. But, authors can do it and shepherds like you can tweak them and kind of guide them into, honing it down and making it refined and elegant and actually marketable.
And the design of the back cover, I think here's another consistent mistake, is that they put it all in one block paragraph and that's it. No, you're designing another page. So think, space, white space, elements to bring in. There might be bullets that belong in. There could be a call-out box actually within it. It's got to be intriguing. And when I'm working with my authors, that I'll just say, give me a fast write-up, and then I'll take it from there, because I know it's like we don't need to know that you have an MBA in the back cover copy, people. We don't need that. What we need to know is the elements of the book, that opens it up, what the ahas are, and think about addressing the pain of, if you're a nonfiction writer, you want to have elements that address the pain that you, as this expert with your book, are going to reveal the cause and the effect and how to solve it and move on. That's what they're looking for. That's what they're looking for.
That's true. They don't want. I mean, we're not interested in if you live with your cat or your dog, even though it may be wonderful. Mm-hmm. For the authors and the folks that have attended, the AuthorU extravaganza or any of the meetings and that we've had get-togethers we have, you constantly are talking about pitching and how to do and practicing how authors do a pitch. And this is the same thing. You may not be pitching. You do partially pitch who you are, but you're pitching your idea, your direction for this book. So it's the same kind of thing. You need to refine it and hone it and craft it to being somewhere between 200 and 275 words of absolutely perfect, pristine text that captures exactly what the book is about. And if you can do that, I think this is where you sell your book. This is where you close the deal on your book, is that back cover copy.
And it's huge. Everyone, it is so huge. I just can't express it enough for those things. So, and that's, I love to do that. But I have to also tell everyone that when I'm working on it, sometimes it doesn't drop in 15 minutes. Sometimes, I remember one time, I don't remember the Kabbalah book we worked on, Nick. I walked up and down my stairway from my office, up into my home. I walked up and down for almost a week carrying that book with me. Come on, flow through until I got all the elements together. And I remember when the author came back, our rabbi came back, and he says, you pulled out things that I forgot were critical and in the book. And sometimes it takes a while to gel it. So it's critical. It's essential element. It's where people spend the most time in before they decide to open up the book and see then what the interior looks like. Is it easy to read? Does it capture them right away? They'll often read a few pages. Okay, this is it for me. So it's the cover, it's the back cover, 15 to 30 seconds are spent there. They'll scan it to look what's in the front. Sometimes they'll look at what the bio is on the person. Book sold. That's how books are bought.
Yeah, I would suggest that the authors listening now, actually, as they're working on their book projects, to start writing their back cover copy now, knowing that obviously it will be edited, changed, revised, shortened, whatever. But it's a great time to start doing it now, because even though you may not be finished with your book by the time you are, you can look back and say, well, I'm missing some crucial points that I wanted to make, but you have a start for it. And I think it's the thing that I find that authors think least about after they finish their book. Oh, well, yes, I have to write back cover copy. Oh, what should it be? This is not a throwaway thing. This is the make or break thing for your book.
Exactly. And, I should mention to all our listeners, if you're in Colorado, Nick is going to be speaking. He's going to be talking about his own author journey, because he besides a musician, he's a rock and roller, by the way. That his own journey. He also is an author of a book. And Nick, why don't you tell what's the title again?
Yes, it's called Another Nightmare Gig from Hell: Musicians' Tales of Wonder and Woe, and it's a culmination of true stories and recollections from bands and performers in all musical genres across the United States about their challenging times on the road or on the stage. So I had to, obviously do a lot of vetting and interviewing, and also a lot of legal investigations about what I should not say or depict in the book. So.
Yeah. So, and I'll just throw that. So, anyone, if you're using lyrics in your book, since we're talking about music, don't use them unless you have written permission from the owner of the lyrics.
That's true.
Use them.
Yep.
Don't use them. All right. So let's transition here, Nick. On design, we see all kinds of fonts. Are there preferred fonts to use, and is there a number? Let's talk about cover first. That go into the interior. How many kind of fonts should be used?
To go back to your first question, there's no go-to font because there's so many hundreds of fonts, but I would say the rule of thumb for, say, cover design is no more than 3 different fonts on a cover. I mean, generally, if you could get it to 2, that would be great, but you do not want to mix and match more than 3 fonts on a cover, because it just sends a different message, because fonts have an aesthetic and an emotional appeal for subliminally, actually, but they if you mix so many of them and you get too stylistic or too funky with them, you'll just dilute your message. So I would say that, if you've got if you're using a sans serif, like sans serif, for those who don't know who that is, that's like a Helvetica or Impact or something like that. If you're using that for your title, you could put your subtitle in a serif font, like a Times New Roman. That's an example. I wouldn't use that one, but
no Times New Roman.
Never used. Actually, don't even use Helvetica if you can avoid it. There are absolutely a million fonts. And another thing about fonts, designers, we like to collect them and get them as much as we can, so it gives us more options. So there are a lot of different sites to go to fonts, but remember, for people getting fonts, that there's some license issues with commercial fonts.
And Nick, hold that thought. Yeah, we're going to take our final break here, and we'll come right back on font size, and then we are going to jump into adaptation for audio, digital, and that's audio, digital, and print for all your covers.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and a guide to partner with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand, and is a financial success, a bestseller. It's your choice. You choose. You need the book shepherd. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You don't need problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and the chaos. At times, she's had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher or by a publishing service provider, or sometimes even the author themselves. Judith Briles is the book shepherd if you want to create a book with no regrets. Give her a call today. 303-885-2207. That's 303-885-2207, or email her at judith@briles.com. By the way, Briles is spelled B-R-I-L-E-S. Follow Judith on Twitter at My Book Shepherd and on Facebook at The Book Shepherd.
One of the most important decisions you will ever make is your choice for printing your book. You are choosing a company which will be responsible for guiding you through the process and printing your book at a level of quality and detail that embraces your personal and creative needs. You want to choose a company that when your book finally arrives, you are delighted and ready to move on to the next level, and one that is customer focused. Choose King Printing Company and Addy Books to be that company that brings you to the next level. Go to kingprinting.com or call 978-458-2345 and ask for Tom Campbell.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, so our final segment with me is Nick Zelinger, and we're talking about cover and interior, and we were just kissing on font sizes as we went into our break. But as Nick said, there are thousands of different fonts. There's thousands. Designers collect them, they buy them, they license for them, and so they have a much bigger array than you and I would have access to. But I think what's probably really important to do for all of you in thinking of cover is I would take your book I would take your book title, I would go into Amazon, I would put it in and see what other covers come up just when you put in your title. You'll be surprised, by the way. Some will have absolutely zero to do with your genre, but you'll see what's going along. The other thing that I would certainly do is I would put in the bestseller for your genre and see what those covers look like when they come up, and pay attention to the font and the size. Any thoughts on that, Nick?
Yeah, I mean that's a great way to look at and see what fonts are being used with that. And for a lot of reasons, maybe you don't want to do exactly what someone else has been doing, but you want to see what current trends are, because fonts like colors tend to be trendy, and they tend to come and go in terms of favorability, and the fact that you can go to like a place like DaFont, which is DAFONT.com, which I go to a lot to find some distinctive fonts for something I want, but you have to, and they're offered up by a lot of foundries that make their own fonts up, but some are free for personal use, some are free for commercial use, and then some are you have to buy a license, and it's usually like a one-user license. So designers don't give away fonts if you're a one user, because you're just you're breaking the licensing agreement. So you have to know the licensing on that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a great way. I mean, I'm a big fan of vetting covers. I mean, getting titles and seeing what's out there. And because designers have to make sure that we're not copying something that's already out on the market. Even though everyone does copy a bit, obviously it's marketing, but you do want to make sure that you're seeing what's the latest trends in font styles, so that this is a competition for buyers, so you really want while you don't want to follow in rote everything is done, and you want to actually kind of tweak it a little bit so it's your own, but you want to really know what's out there.
Exactly, and that's really critical. You need to understand it. And then the other thing is that I would make sure that before you sign off and say, bang, this is it, make sure you reduce the size of the cover you're looking at to a thumbnail size to see if it's readable.
That's the biggest challenge, I think, right now that we have as designers, is that the cover is going to be replicated and reproduced in a variety of formats. It's going to be for print, it's going to be for ebook, it's going to be for an audio cover, so they're all different sizes and formats. And I think, and the challenge is for designers that how to make sure that all those sizes are viable for the design. So we need to keep in mind. And the trend actually, I mean, it's not really a trend, I would say. I think it's a good rule of thumb, is to don't make covers as busy as everyone wants to make them be. Try to keep them, simple is always better. Less is best than more, because I think we tend to clog up our covers with a lot of information and a lot of visuals sometimes. And I think if you can make something short and snappy, it's always better,
Well,
I'm going to go. Yeah,
I'm going to come back to Courtney Miller's on the Ravenmacher. Mm-hmm. And when we came in, you and I were pushing this brilliant red with the Ravenmacher black just kind of dropping in. And he had 4 or 5 different elements because they were all important in the book. I get it. I understood that. But there was no focal point. There was no eyeball thing that I could get my eyeball to. And we finally got him into our way, and it's gotten huge accolades for what was done. But that's where you listen to the designer. 1 and 2, keep it simple. Keep it simple.
It's true, and as for Courtney's case, it was a huge stepping stone for him, because that was his first book out of the gate in a series of books, and he's been very prolific from them. But I think you're right. I mean, I think, as buyers, a potential buyer for your book, we don't really care or know too much about all these little elements you want to pepper through your cover. It's not that. It's one major focal point, maybe 2. And usually it's the font plus the supporting image and the use of color. So there's all these little elements, placement of everything take effect to make something very dynamic. So.
And that's the excitement. That's what makes it so much fun. All right, so Nick, let's in these last few minutes, let's come back to some of these elements that we've talked about, how to vet, propose, and also I think I want to tell everyone, if you're going to be doing an ebook, which I'm assuming you are, if you're going to be doing an audiobook, you need to know that the audiobook covers have a different dimension than a regular book cover. So let your designer know from the get-go on that.
Yeah, because generally for the Audible ACX covers through Amazon, it's a square image. It's just a 2400 by 2400 pixel. So your book cover in print and ebook is actually a vertical image. We'll just use 5.5 by 8.5 as an example. But that's certainly not a square, and you certainly don't want to just bring that cover image into Photoshop and then scrunch it up into a square, because you will have a distorted image. So every once in a while, it works real well to have the major elements in a cover be transformed into that square size, but sometimes it doesn't. So you may have to tweak a little. Your designer may have to tweak a little bit, or you get rid of some of the elements that were on your original cover and just get the main elements. So it's a challenge, but it can be done. It's just something to keep in mind. And of course, your ebook covers are basically you're replicating your print cover, only it's just a digital image.
All right, and then Nick, let's talk about the DIYers, because you and I see them all the time, or the people who jump on Fiverr right away for their cover design, and versus because they want to save some money. And would you like to say something?
Yeah, I mean, in defense of the Fiverr, there are some really good designers out there, and that's the way you want to go. Necessarily, need to go. Then I can understand that. It's just that I think you limit yourself when you're just thinking about, gee, if I can get something for $100, I'll just beat everybody. I'll made a killing. I'll beat the system of this. But I think, they don't have. What misses there, to me, what really is missing is the collaboration between an author and a designer about exactly what they need and want. This is not a competition for who's making the prettiest cover or who's making a cover that you like, the author likes. Remember, this has more to do with your market. So it's the professional consultation means a lot in this context, because it's just not, I'm going to have a competition and I want to pick out what the prettiest cover is. So I think even more, the reason why I brought the DIY thing up is because I recently had to actually terminate a relationship with an author because I realized that he was never going to allow me any professional input into his cover. He was one of those that did his cover in Word, and he did his entire interior in Word, and he was giving me instructions about in inches and pixels how he wanted things placed and sizing of everything.
Oh, save me.
I said, sir, you do not need a designer, you need a tech person. Yeah. And you can find them at a school if you like. But I said, and first of all, and secondly, your cover is not correct. It's not going to work. But if this is what you want, then you need to find someone else. So there's that.
And one other thing is, and I know we're going to do a wrap here real quick, but the other thing is, a lot of times when you do these outsourcing from these different groups, they really don't get the cultural market you're going to, and you need to understand that. It's for the reader, everyone. Your cover is not for you. I want you to like it. I do want you to love it. Of my 18 book covers I've done with New York, I'll tell you only 2 of them I liked. The rest of them I apologize for, and I hated that. All right, Nick, one last, let's see, we have like 2 minutes here. Let's give a couple of don'ts to do. Don't do this. We've hit them, and then maybe wrap up with what the huge do. My big do is I think you can't afford not to use a professional cover and interior designer. I can't imagine not doing it any other way. You want to add to that?
Yeah, I think, I would definitely, and I would not, beyond covers, I would not use someone who doesn't know how to do layout design. In other words, don't pick someone who's a nephew who says, I just learned InDesign or Quark Express and I'm going to have some fun fiddling around with your book and I can do it for free. Don't do that. That's a costly mistake, just like cover design. If you tend to want to give it to somebody who's competing for your $100 or something.
All right. So I'm going to have to end on that one because we're going to wrap up here. All right. So everyone, June 3rd, Nick will be speaking on this at the AuthorU.org meeting. And if you are away from Colorado, guess what? You can register and get the video. How cool is that? All right. Have a great writing week. Thank you so much, Nick, for being with me again on AuthorU, Your Guide to Book Publishing.
Thanks, Judith.
Being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing.
Everyone have a great
Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Each week,